Broodtwister Ovi'Nax is either the 5th or 6th boss of Nerub'ar Palace Raid in World of Warcraft, The War Within. This is a heavy ad management fight where you're going to be prioritizing what enemies to take down at what time. The room is split into 3 different sections of eggs, and there's a vial canister at the back of each section. There are 3 different types of eggs. Large eggs, which will have colossal spiders within them. These need to be tanked as they hit really hard. They also gain stacks of Frenzy over time, which increases their damage dealt by 25%. This means you have to take these things down, and you can't just ignore them. If the black blood ever touches a colossal spider egg, it hatches empowered. This is going to give it Necrotic Bite, which is a stacking debuff that reduces healing received on the target. This now forces a tank swap mechanic on these creatures, and makes it so you cannot have multiple up at a time, because that stacking heal block is going to wipe the raid. The medium-sized eggs turn into voracious worms. These have a poison burst, which is an interruptible effect that is AoE damage to all players. Interrupting the voracious worm is the absolute priority on this boss fight. If there are multiple adds up, somebody has to be assigned to interrupting poison burst. The worms cannot move, so once they've spawned, you need to stay on them and take them down. If these things ever touch the black blood, they become empowered ravenous. This increases their cast speed by 100% and will require 2 different people on them to keep them interrupted. Finally, the tiny cluster of eggs turn into blood parasites. These fixate onto a target and then attach to that target for 10 seconds. At the end of that 10 seconds, if the blood parasite is not dead, it will burst and put out 2 new blood parasites. As soon as these things spawn, they are the priority targets to be taken down. Above all other adds in the fight, the blood parasites must be taken out first because they will multiply and destroy your group if they are not handled. If the black blood ever touches these eggs, they get stacking 10% increased movement speed every second. This will ensure that you won't be able to CC and slow them forever. Now that we've showcased each of the different adds, let's actually talk about the boss fight. Shortly after being pulled, she'll charge after the nearest canister. You can control where she's going to go by pulling her towards one of the 3 canisters. Each of the 3 different zones has more of one type of egg than the others. To the left is mostly the blood parasites. To the right is mostly the voracious worms, and to the back is mostly the colossal spiders. When she gets to a canister, she'll start pulsing out raid-wide damage and stack a heal absorption effect on every player. Healers need to hold cooldowns for this effect and stack multiple healing AoE cooldowns for when she's channeling into one of the canisters. Once she's fully charged up, she gains Unstable Infusion, which causes her to pulse out AoE damage every 7.5 seconds, as well as send out vial discharges throughout the room, which will deal damage in areas. After she's charged the canister and fed herself, the black blood will begin slowly pouring out of the canister. This will slowly spread through this third of the room, and if it ever touches one of the spider eggs on the ground, it'll hatch the egg and empower those minions, as well as pulse out 2 million damage to all players every 2 seconds for 30 seconds. So make sure the blood never touches an egg. On Mythic difficulty, whichever side you decide to go to, the primary type of egg in that side will always hatch with the empowered ability. So on Mythic more than the other options, deciding which side your group is able to handle the best and the worst is really important. You're going to want to probably pick the hardest side first, as you have cooldowns and everybody alive to deal with, and pick the easiest side last. On normal and heroic, you probably want to do that the other way around, because I think it's only going to take 2 canisters to take her down. You're not going to need all 3. So, for dealing with the eggs themselves, experimental dosage is a debuff that's going to go on multiple players, and after a delay, ruptures, dealing damage to everything within its 4 yards. If there's an egg within the circle, that'll cause the egg to burst and release the minions before the black blood touches them. You then can pick up the minions, pull them away from the expanding blood, and deal with them. The trick is to unleash the minions that are closest to the canister, slowly working your way back as you get more and more of the debuffs to clear out more eggs as the blood expands. On Mythic difficulty, it requires 2 experimental dosages per egg to destroy, so you've got to be coordinated with who goes where, making sure that no eggs ever get touched by the black blood. Of course, while dealing with all of this, there's also a tank swap. Volatile Concoction is a debuff that will go onto the tank that after a 8-second delay will erupt for damage based off the current HP of the tank. The tank that gets this debuff needs to have every other target pulled off of it, and they need to be focused healed until their maximum health. You need to be really careful on Mythic difficulty with the colossal spiders stacking heal block on the tank. You need to make sure that you can top off that tank before the debuff expires. The heroic mechanic is Sticky Web. This is a debuff that's going to go on a target, dealing them massive nature damage every second, and slowing them significantly. This effect can be dispelled, and upon removal, the player will explode for damage to all targets nearby and root everybody that gets hit. You need to watch for these circles to go out, and then to quickly move out of each of the circles. Once nobody's in a circle range, that player needs to get dispelled to remove the debuff and stop the incoming damage. So that's all the mechanics. Strategically, pick her up and move her to the decided area. I recommend the left area first, as this is the one with the small adds, and we want everybody alive to be able to deal with them. Make sure you have a lot of CC ready to be able to stun, slow, and pull on these things. Next up, you're headed to that back canister. That's going to be the big tanky ones. These are the next hardest ones to deal with, so you want to be able to again handle them where you have the most people alive. The final area you should deal with is the right area. This is definitely the easiest section to handle, and once you get a lot stronger at the fight, you're going to want to probably tackle this one first, because you might be able to kill the boss before she goes to any of the other zones. The biggest things that are going to kill you on this fight are that tank debuff, as well as any of the blood touching any of the eggs. Once you figure out those two main mechanics, you're going to have a pretty easy time with this boss on normal and heroic. Mythic's a different story, that thing's a nightmare. I hope this guide helped you figure out how to take down Broodtwister Ovi'Nax. I'm Zesty Fresh Games, and we'll catch you guys next time.